Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Tavern Adjacent. We took a week off for our Q&A, but we are back for the month of March. Welcome, everyone. It's good to have you guys here in our Tavern Adjacent. But anyway, point is, let's get to what we're talking about today. We're talking about Destiny 2 Lightfall. I know, it's not a tabletop thing, but I am bringing tabletop into it because I wasn't going to talk about Lightfall other than in my thing of the week, but Lightfall's story ended up being very disappointing to me, and it was disappointing in a way that I didn't expect. I was not expecting it to be disappointing and for it to feel like a bad Dungeons and Dragons campaign or a bad TTRPG campaign, and we're going to talk about it. And then after that, we're going to talk about preventing that, guys, your D&D group. A post on DM Academy went very popular, and I thought it gave some pretty good advice on handling problem players before they even become a problem in the first place. And then finally, as we always do, we're going to take your voicemails and cap it off with my thing of the week. So without further ado, guys, let's get started. I'm going to answer your question, because you probably already have it. Crispy, what the hell are you talking about? What do you mean that Destiny 2 Lightfall is a Dungeons & Dragons campaign the worst way possible? I thought you were really excited for Lightfall, and I was really excited for Lightfall, and for the most part, my expectations were met from the point of view of a person playing an MMO. I am enjoying Lightfall from a gameplay perspective a lot. I'm really enjoying the game part of it, which is the main reason I'm playing. I play video games for the story, yes, but also because I like playing video games. And Lightfall, I really enjoy. However, Destiny was really hitting its stride with storytelling. Just 2 weeks ago, we had an incredible cinematic where the Traveler, one of the main plot elements of Destiny, left the last city of humanity. It was a major moment in the story because the Traveler has always protected the last city. We've always protected the Traveler, and now it's leaving. It went into space, and that was a really poignant moment from a storytelling perspective. Lots of awesome symbolism and imagery in that whole cinematic. It was legitimately gorgeous and beautiful. One of my favorite storytelling moments in just a video game. And that made me so excited for Lightfall because carrying that momentum into an expansion is just incredible. Like Witch Queen, which was the expansion last year, had a really awesome story, and I don't think it had nearly this much momentum. But then Lightfall came around, and the problems with it immediately became clear. So let's go back to the Dungeons and Dragons and tabletop role-playing game in general analogy. When you are a game master, you are often flying by the seat of your pants, and that's okay, all right? If you look back on your plot, you write down everything, you listen back to it on recording or something like that, you're probably going to see some plot inconsistencies, some stuff that comes out of nowhere, things like that. And that's okay. Your story is not going to be perfect because guess what? You can't sit down in a writer's room with a team and draft up multiple elements of the narrative, write out dialogue for the characters to perfectly convey who they are, etc., etc., etc. It's really hard. I just wrapped up a game that I recorded for YouTube, and you're going to hear more about that, later on. Trust me, all right? I'm really excited. But, that aside, I just wrapped up that game, and obviously I recorded it, so I can actually listen back to the campaign in its fullness, and there were some things that, I'm not chewing myself out over, but I do regret. Some characters and some elements of those characters that weren't properly conveyed because as a DM, I just forgot, or I didn't have time. Or I forgot to do it because, frankly, I'm trying to focus on so many elements of my game. As a game master, you just have a lot of responsibilities. It's a different job than if you were a writer, like somebody writing Destiny 2 Lightfall. And often that will lead to you kind of like pulling stuff out of thin air, making stuff up as you go along. And frankly, that's part of the charm. Your story is not going to be airtight, and that's part of what makes it so fun. You're trying to, adapt to all these different things. You're creating a story with your friends. But with Lightfall, not only does it not feel airtight, it feels like the airlock has bursted open entirely. So basically what happened was, we're going into the final battle of Destiny's saga. The final battle of light versus darkness. Sounds very stereotypical, but damn it, it's really, really cool. If you play the game and you get invested in all these characters, it's a really cool moment that we've been building up to for literally years. And could you imagine Right as that final battle is coming, you get told that the darkness side, the witness, our big bad evil guy, he's looking for something. The veil, a mysterious artifact of unknowable power. And you're like, oh shit, that's something we gotta get before he does. And the plot of Lightfall is that you need to get to the veil before the witness's disciple, the Emperor Callus, finds it. So basically, you're fighting against the witness's like little boy minion, not the actual witness, which is fine. All right, we're saving him for later. We're saving it for later, I should say. But so anyway, you're racing against this emperor guy to find the veil, and you stumble upon a city on Neptune, hidden for centuries, which is, you know, kind of out of nowhere considering that we've been protecting the last city for 9 years. But okay, there's a city on Neptune. They've been hidden there this whole time. All right, that's some interesting storytelling opportunities. That's the setup. So what's the payoff? Well, it's pretty much nothing. We never learn what the veil is. We never even talk to the witness directly, which I think is fine, but the amount of scenes that it actually had was disappointing considering that's what a lot of people were excited about. Hell, even the technical big bad evil guy of this era of the campaign, Emperor Callus, the witness's little boy minion, he barely gets any screen time too. And mostly we spend our time protecting Neomuna, this city on Neptune that we didn't even know existed, and we frankly don't care about, because the game master of Destiny didn't really properly set up the stakes. Hell, the game master of Destiny didn't even really establish what the hell the veil is in the first place. And that resulted in this campaign and a story that felt extremely empty. Because what, where, how is just questions that your players, both video game players and TTRPG players, should not be asking too often. One moment of my DMing career that forever shamed me was when one of my players asked, wait, why do we dislike this guy again? Why are we fighting this guy? What are we doing? Why are we here? That was like, oh crap. To me as a game master, that made me kind of reconsider a lot of things because my players should never be asking that. What they're doing, why they're here. I mean, those are basic things. You know, I said earlier that when you're a game master, you have a lot of responsibilities. And sometimes things are going to fall by the wayside. But the basic principles of why you're fighting and where you are should not typically be in question, right? Maybe there's some kind of niche element of storytelling where keeping that vague and anonymous could be cool, but most of the time you want to at least make sure that your players understand what is going on. Destiny did not make that a priority, and it felt like, again, a tabletop campaign the worst way, where a DM is flying by the seat of their pants and making stuff up that makes no sense, not even bothering to inform the players of what's going on, or even bothering to really include the players in the story. It felt like we had such little agency, and the characters that we knew had such little agency in the story. Hell, Lightfall even kind of had their own little DMPC in the form of Nimbus, even though Nimbus doesn't fulfill all of the qualifications for a DMPC. They're a non-player character in Lightfall that kind of acts as our comedy relief, but it really doesn't work. It's kind of like the NPC that the DM really wants you to like, but the whole party clearly is just not vibing with them. This is something I'm always afraid of. I'll sometimes introduce, NPCs that are a little bit gray in terms of their morality, because I like doing that. My party are almost always good guys, so introducing NPCs like this could offer a little bit of interesting perspective. However, sometimes those characters come off really dislikable, and that's kind of the point, but I don't want them to be that dislikable, and towing that line is really hard. So I try to talk with the players a lot, like, hey, how are we feeling about this character? If you remember Shadow over Carconos, I introduced Kalia Solfero, and while the majority of the audience and all of the players liked her, I was really scared that people wouldn't, because this NPC being central to the plot is kind of a rough situation. Like, if Kalia doesn't land well with the players or with the audience, that's kind of really bad, She is important to the plot. She's not the driving force. She's more like it's more like a Princess Zelda situation. She's not really a driving force, but the party need to help her. She is the main quest giver, and if people don't like her, well, that's not good. Like, if the party want to kill her, that's really bad. So I talk with the players a lot to make sure she is landing well with them. If I was a DM and I made a Nimbus-type character who has been really badly received by the majority of the community because of inappropriate comedy relief moments, basically just annoying people and being obnoxious, yeah, that's the kind of thing where I would really want to ask my players. Obviously, the writers of Bungie couldn't do that. But if you as a DM introduce a character like this, a character that your players might not be liking so much, asking them, hey, how do you feel about this NPC? That might be a good idea. And it shows them that you as a DM or a GM care about their opinions about your campaign, care about, their feedback. Obviously, again, flawed comparison considering that Bungie's writers and developers can't really do that. But at the same time, I can really see the Nimbus to DMPC comparison point because, yeah, it was there. I was thinking it while I was playing. I was like, damn, this feels like a bad comedy relief DMPC. The DM threw in here to kind of like insert a little bit of lightheartedness, but it's just really not landing. And there's, in my opinion, nothing more, sorry about the word choice, cringeworthy than a comedy relief that really does not land. On top of that, also, a lot of DMs, I feel like, struggle with stakes, We understand the stakes of Lightfall generally. If the witness gets what it wants, bad stuff happens. They're like an ungodly powerful entity that is really bad and evil and ended civilization in the origin story of the game's universe. So, okay, obviously if this guy is out here ending civilizations, letting him get what he wants is probably a bad idea. It's probably bad if this thing manages to get the veil and do whatever it's trying to do. But assuming something is bad and actually knowing something is bad are two different things. You see, I know when, for example, Matt Mercer was running Critical Role, if the party let Thordak the Cinder King win, they understand the stakes. Why? Because Thordak the Cinder King opened up his arc of the campaign by blowing up their home city and absolutely annihilating it in one of the most visceral moments of the campaign ever. Those are stakes people understand. Those are stakes people automatically get. Burning buildings, destroyed cities, people dying. Oh no, this is horrible. Destiny 2, Vanilla, which had a really rough campaign for the most part, had an excellent opening mission, though, that automatically set up the stakes. The Red Legion, this army of space rhinos invades the last city and burns it down to the ground in a brutal scene. And yeah, that was epic. Your guardian, your character, he gets kicked off of a building. They fall all the way to the ground, and they need to crawl their way through the ruined city they were supposed to protect. That's epic. Those are stakes right there. Because those are stakes people understand. Burning city, burning buildings. Those are things people get. But the witness, this godly entity trying to collect the veil to form the connection with the traveler, what does any of that mean? Like, what's the end goal here? If the witness took all of its big giant ships, landed in the city, and blew it up, those are stakes that people get. City is blown up. Oh, crap. That's not good. The witness collected the veil. Yeah, no. What does that mean? Why is that bad? The characters tell us it's bad, and that's something that I often think we game masters do. We'll use our NPCs to communicate the stakes without using the story itself to show the players the stakes. We'll tell, not show. And often as a game master, not often, every time you need to tell, not show, because D&D and all TTRPGs for the most part are imaginative mediums. But if anything, that kind of frees your shackles a little bit. You don't need to use exposition from a character to convey stakes. You can describe things happening. Don't just tell your players, you should feel tense right now. It's like that one scene where the guy's holding up the sign, feel sad, feel scared. You shouldn't need to do that. As a game master, as a storyteller, you should be able to, have things actually happen in the campaign. Like, for example, in one of my campaigns, they being my party was being hunted down by this gunslinger known as the Reckoner. And yeah, he was really bad. He was bad news for the party. And he started out there, the first fight he had with the party, he broke one of their most powerful magical items with just a snap of his fingers. The reason I did that was because they're about to TPK, and rather than having this guy kill all the party, he broke one of their most powerful magical items because it was a dark relic that represents all that he hates. He let them go after that. But yeah, that was a really big bunch of stakes. He kicked their butts and broke an item they really liked. Oh, crap. Don't like this guy. And they automatically hated him and wanted to hunt him down to the end of the world. Perfect. Those are stakes the players get. We lost an item that's valuable to us. We need to kill the guy that did that to us. Boom. Stakes. Lightfall, again, the witness is collecting the veil. Well, what does that do? Does that end the world? Does that result in the witness gaining more power and, destroying civilization again? Like, what's happening? Does the veil give him an army? What's going on? What does that mean? No one knows. And that's why the campaign fell flat for a lot of people. Also, on top of that, often during the campaign, the actual, consequences are happening to Neomuna, the city we just found. The big consequence for the overlying universe is the witness collecting the veil, but we just established why that's bad. What about the big turtles with big, space rhinos with guns that invaded Neomuna? What about those stakes? That's just like when the space turtles with guns invaded the last city. Here's the thing. The last city we've been protecting for years. Neomuna we just found last week. And I don't care about Neomuna. I don't care about Neomuna at all because I have not been here before. It doesn't matter to me. And this is something that I think a lot of GMs also struggle with. I'm drawing more of these parallels the more we do it because I also struggled with this in that campaign I just talked about, that streamed game, the one I recorded for YouTube. I needed to establish the player's connection with the country of Ardinia very quickly because it was a short campaign. But largely through backstory, I managed to do that. I managed to forge a connection with the city through not just the backstory, but also the characters in the city. The players like some of the characters in the city. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And that's good. That connection is forged, and that means that it allows the players to forge some kind of connection with the larger place. If they care about people in the place, they're going to care about the place. Do you get what I'm saying there? Well, why didn't we do that with Neomuna? Well, the reason is largely because in Neomuna, all the people, for some ungodly reason I will not understand, are these digitized, not even human-looking holograms. They just look like blobs of blue code. Why did they do that? I know why. I know you're about to say, oh, well, because development time, and yeah, I know. But, that was a bad idea. Okay, I can't form a connection with this blob of digitized code. There's one blob of digitized code who spends a lot of who is basically like this librarian. She's like a historian, and I really liked her as a character because of her voice actress really putting in work to make this likable, librarian sweetheart character. It worked really well, but it's hard to form a connection when this person that I'm talking to is just like a blob of blue code. Like, if it was a person that I could see, I'd be like, oh yeah, that's cool. I like you. I don't even remember her name because I'm not going to bother to learn the name of a blob of blue code, man. Visuals matter a lot. And that's also why I recommend DMs try their best, maybe not to commission art, but find portraits online to represent characters. I do this all the time. For every notable NPC in my campaign, there is some kind of portrait. I literally have hundreds of tokens in my VTT, not just for monsters and general NPCs, but also for unique NPCs who get unique art because I want the players to remember them. And I find that every character that they forget are characters without some kind of portrait. That happens all the time. So yeah, that's a big thing. Visuals matter. Making your player characters care about the people in the environment, in the campaign, that really matters. And failing to do that can result in a really empty bunch of stakes, because why should the players care? Even threats like the world is going to end is real vague, right? The players don't really get that. That's another mistake I make a lot, and another mistake Lightfall makes. Because we understand, again, if the witness gets what it wants, the world is probably maybe going to end. But again, that's too big picture, right? The stake of, oh, the witness is going to come down and burn down the last city where everybody's living. Boom. There you go. That makes sense. I mean, really, I don't want to talk too much about Destiny here because I understand a lot of you don't play Destiny. I also understand a lot of you do. So let me know what you think. But again, overall, I really liked this expansion, and I really still love Destiny. This isn't me saying, oh my god, I hate Destiny now. Destiny sucks. It's terrible. Bungie have no idea. They've gone soft. They're horrible, awful. No. It's still really good. I'd rate Lightfall overall a 7 to 8 out of 10. And Lightfall's campaign, I'd rate a 5. But overall, yeah, it's 7 to 8 out of 10 games. Still, it's really good. I'm enjoying grinding out the game a lot. And I haven't even gotten into the proper ritual activities and playlists. However, the story itself was a big letdown to me because we had all these stakes. There was so much momentum going into this, guys. Like 2 weeks ago, we had that epilogue cutscene I talked about earlier. That was so breathtaking and beautiful. It felt like we were going somewhere. And then we get this. It doesn't feel like we're going anywhere. I feel like Bungie also misunderstands what stakes people really feel. People don't understand the cosmic war, the flower game between the gardener and the winnower. I understand that because I'm a lore nerd, but most people don't. Okay, most people get the principle of big battle between ships, explosions, bad things are happening, la da la da la. I'm not saying you can't have complex lore behind it, but I think that the literal elements of what is happening on screen should be understandable to a general audience. Like, you could have the backstory of this is the climax of the great flower game between the gardener and the winnower, these ancient cosmic forces that existed before time even had a name. Like, that makes sense for, like, the backstory, but when it comes to the actual, like, visceral stuff of what's happening on screen, you need something more understandable. The Red Legion invading the last city, I understand that. I feel that. The bad guy, the witness, carving a little triangle in the traveler because, I don't know, he likes triangles. I don't get that. You can say all you want that this is the final phase of the ancient game before time. Doesn't matter. What I saw on screen was some dude carving a freaking triangle into a giant ball. And I don't know what the hell that's supposed to mean. And I'm a lore nerd. I can make some guesses, but like, holy hell, man. It was really disappointing. I hope that Bungie can recover this, and I hope that they realize that the stakes need to be more understandable, and they need to go back to like a little bit ground level. Go back to ground level. I mean, we understood the collapse as, the end of civilization, storms and ships destroying our world and reducing civilization down to one city. Now we have only one city left and the collapse has come again. It shouldn't be this like wishy-washy, magic, timey-wimey BS. It should be something where like, aliens are invading. These awful pyramid ships with unlimited cosmic power are blowing up our walls and tearing up our guardians. Like, that should be what's happening. Instead, we got whatever this is, which, yeah. Hopefully, Bungie can recover here. I'm hoping the seasonal story will also recover here. It looks like, for now, the threat of the pyramid ships is gone, which is so disappointing. They were like the White Walkers of Destiny, and just like the White Walkers of Game of Thrones, it just ended up being kind of disappointing to me. But again, I mean, we're getting one more expansion in this whole saga, the Final Shape. So hopefully Bungie will recover. Just like how many times DMs and GMs, we mess up. We have bad plot lines, bad arcs. That happens. But sometimes, most of the time I hope, we pull ourselves back. We sit down, we talk to our players, we figure out what they want out of the story, and we recover. So hopefully Bungie can do that. If not, that's going to really suck because, I mean, damn. Destiny's had its ups and downs, but this is a franchise that's really special to me, and it's influenced a lot of my storytelling. And I truly hope against hope that Bungie can bounce back. They've bounced back before. They've bounced back many times before, and they've given us amazing stories. I'm hoping they can do it again. But with that being said, that's the end of our Destiny Lightfall discussion. Let's talk about this Reddit post on DM Academy that I think does a really good job at talking about establishing healthy boundaries and keeping that guys away from your D&D table. So yeah, let's get into that. Alright, so it's no secret that we talk about that guys a lot on this channel. It's a big part of our whole thing. But on DM Academy, I saw a really, really good post, and it's titled, "If you need to be a tyrant, be a tyrant." And this sounds bad, because often the worst that guys aren't players. They're often DMs who are acting like tyrants in the worst way possible. And that's not what this post is trying to say. Basically, the post premise is this. It's saying that if you have a D&D group or a TTRPG group and someone's like, "Hey, can I bring my friend Steve?" And Steve is going to be a really bad fit for the group in whatever way, whether Steve is just a dick, you and Steve don't get along, you don't think Steve is going to fit, blah, 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 blah. Whatever reason, if you think the reason is valid, you should put your foot down on that. At least tell the player, hey, I don't think that's a good idea. And if you think it's a really, 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 really bad idea, sorry, words are hard. If you think it's a really bad idea, put your foot down harder and say, look, I'm sorry, but no, I'm not going to let Tim join the game. Now, I've talked about this before in a video that was kind of controversial. Probably the video I got the most hate on in my entire life, but I'm going to stick to it here. Setting healthy boundaries is good. It's a good thing. Now, of course, you need to be a little bit self-aware. You need to reflect on yourself a little bit to make sure that your boundaries aren't just you, excluding other people for no reason. Like, I've been excluded from groups for reasons that, are kind of, I'm not going to go into specifics, but they're things that I can't do anything about. Let's just say that and end it there. And that sucks. That really, really sucks. It's bad. But if, for example, you have a player, like I've had to do this too. If you have a player who is trying to join your group who you just think is going to be a horrible fit, then it's okay for you to say no. You are not obligated to say yes to people if you think they're just not going to fit into your game for whatever reason, whether they're a friend of the friend or even a random person. I was shocked by the boldness by which people just asked or even sometimes demanded they play in my campaign, even though I just met them and all they know is that I run D&D on the weekends. Like, I think I've told this story before, but a little RPG horror story of mine, little I stress, is I was at a friend's workplace and I was eating lunch with them in their little office and the door was open so people could hear what we were talking about. And I brought up that what they had a friend of a friend there, and I talked about, what I did for a living because they asked. And they asked what I did, and I said, I just joked and I quipped, oh yeah, I play Dungeons and Dragons on YouTube, which is not technically true, but, joke came across, we had a little bit of a laugh, and I, explained like, oh, what Dungeons and Dragons is, what I do, and the IDM, blah, 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 blah. Fun conversation. Nice and cool. But anyway, after that, I walk out of my friend's little space to go down the stairs and leave the building and go back home. And somebody gets up from their desk and starts following me. I can't help but notice, okay, they're probably just, going in the same direction. No big deal. Maybe they're going to the bathroom or something. I get in the elevator and they get in the elevator with me. And wait, no. Before this, sorry. While we were walking towards, I'm trying to remember this. This was not even a couple months ago, like 6 months ago. So I'm trying to strain for the details. But I was walking into the elevator, and they asked me while I was walking in, "So you play D&D, right?" And a little factoid about me: I always got music in here, very loud, can't hear him. So he taps me on the shoulder. I pause, and I'm like, "Oh, what? So you play D&D, right?" I'm like, "Yeah, I DM." Back to music. And sorry if that comes off as rude. Like, look, I had just eaten. I was in a good mood, but I also was listening to a really good song. So, sorry, buddy. Random guy asking me if I play D&D is not my top priority, especially when I'm getting into the elevator. He leans down to me and says something, and he's kind of muffled because, again, music. Invaders Must Die, Prodigy. I'm pretty sure that's what I was listening to. Great song. But he leaned down and asked me something, play D&D, and I was like, what? Something, play D&D, and I'm like, what? No one pays me to play, and he says it finally, loudly, can I play in your D&D game? And I'm like, oh, no, sorry, man, sorry, I only play with, really close friends, sorry I didn't hear you, my bad. And he's like, yeah, no wonder you didn't hear me, honestly, no one hears me these days. I never get to play in anyone's games. My game fell apart, and I have no idea why. Figures you wouldn't let me play with you. I'm like, sorry, look, man, I'm sorry. We just met. And this guy's tall, by the way, and I'm still in the freaking elevator with him. It's so awkward, because he's not mad, but he's getting a little bit aggressive. And I'm just like, I get it. It's frustrating because I wasn't listening to you, but, I'm sorry, man. I just was not in the mood for this random elevator conversation. I'm really sorry. Also, the Prodigy's a great band. Sorry. But anyway, yeah, you'd be surprised by the degree by which people will just asked to be in your game. And you should not feel ashamed when you say no. This guy was trying to make me feel bad. Like, oh, my game fell apart. Why won't you let me join yours? Blah, 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 blah. But I'm sorry, man. Like, I don't know you at all. I didn't even know this guy's name. Okay? He's just some dude with really horrible facial hair and really bad body odor that got in the elevator with me to ask me to let him into my game on a whim. Doesn't even know my name. Didn't even ask my name. Like, damn, man. I mean, I respect the, what's the word? The Riz? Is that the right word? I don't even know what that means. But the Riz. I respect the Riz, right? The go-getter attitude. I don't know if those are the same thing. I actually have no clue, but we'll go with it anyway. The go-getter attitude of this guy. I kind of respect it, but at the same time, you gotta respect the no. And frankly, the fact that he kind of got upset when I said no, like, yeah, bit of a warning sign to me. Again, though, you should not feel bad. That's not, I think that the post title is a little bit misleading. I don't think that's you being a tyrant. I think that's you being smart. Especially if you know somebody's going to cause an issue at the table, then that is definitely something that you have a right to try and avoid. Like, if you have, for example, another problem that I had early on in my DMing career, I had a guy who was kind of had that nice guy, like, white knight incel vibes going on. Like oh, I'm so good to women, but they never are good to me. That kind of vibes. And he had some creepy stuff in the DMs. It was bad. I found out about all this. And look, I've got 3 girls at the table. And that's not good behavior. And of course, like, the moment they figured out that this guy acted like that, they were like, okay, look, I'm either gonna bail or he's gotta go. And I'm like, yeah, he's gotta go. I would let go of him in an instant because I'm not letting these 3 people go over this one guy and his sexist BS. Like, instantaneously, the moment I figured that out, got rid of him. Because that kind of behavior, A, is not okay, and B, it's bad for the table. It's bad for us. Even though he didn't let it, like, show at the, well, in hindsight, he kind of did let it show at the gaming table, but he didn't let it show that much at the gaming table. The moment I figured it out, even though it's out-of-game stuff, doesn't matter. That kind of thing is not okay. The real world doesn't just evaporate into nothingness when you play Dungeons and Dragons, okay? You're still human beings at a table playing a game. And if you know there's a guy at the table who's extremely creepy towards women, and there's women at the table, it makes things a little awkward, a little bit awkward. And that's something you gotta take into account. I don't think that's you being a tyrant. I think that's you being a good group leader, taking charge and setting up some healthy boundaries, not just for the group, but also keep in mind for yourself. If somebody tells you, like, hey, my buddy Sam wants to join the game, and that buddy Sam has been mean to you in the past, you have full rights to say, sorry, man, no, we don't get along, and I'm not going to let him in my game. Again, that's not you being a tyrant. I think that's you just being a good leader and taking care of yourself. Again, it does require some self-reflection. Are these reasons that you are not allowing someone to your game legitimate reasons? Like, are they real? Like, that whole elevator conversation, I reflected on that a couple times. Like, I don't feel bad for the guy, but, like, when I was considering whether or not to tell that story, I was thinking to myself, like, okay, was I the dick there? Because, like, I was in my earbud land, I wasn't listening to the guy. But then, upon some reflection, I think, yeah, no, I think I was justified in saying that. I think I was justified in how I handled that whole thing, in saying no to this guy. First and foremost, I don't know them, obviously. Like, of course I'm not going to let you in my D&D game. I'm not going to spend hours running a game for you when I have no idea who you are. And second, like, the fact that the guy got so, like, not aggressive, but kind of a little bit letting the mask slip there a little bit in the elevator, yeah, that made it really weird. Also, if somebody's clearly, like, dude, when I listen to music, I clearly am listening to music. I'm head bopping. I even tap my foot, do a little jig a little bit. Nothing crazy, but like if you played Hi-Fi Rush, I'm Chai. You know when Chai is standing still in Hi-Fi Rush and he's tapping his foot, making a little bit. Clearly he's jamming. All right, that's me. I'm always clearly jamming. All right. I'm not listening, and I make it very obvious I'm not listening. I do that so that people understand that I'm in another world. And the fact that this guy kept on persisting and not, like, after he tapped me on the shoulder, he didn't try doing it again. He just kept on, like, going here to try and, like, get my attention by just talking louder, which got really irritating. Also, he smelled. I was very justified in that situation. I don't even know why I doubted myself there. But yeah. If somebody is a warning flag, has a bunch of red flags to you, obviously make sure they are red flags. Like, talk to other people about it. But on top of that, just just trust your instincts too. If you talk to other people and they agree with you, and you think your reasoning is justified, you're not being a tyrant by letting these people go. And again, I'm not trying to crap talk this Reddit post. They're right. Whoever posted this Reddit post is right. You need to put your foot down. And if somebody who is a red flag tries to join your game, it's okay for you to respectfully say, no, man, I'm sorry. You're not going to fit in. I mean, hell, if your group is just full, you can also tell people, like, look, sorry. Group's full. Like, I run for 5 people. I can't run for anyone else. I'd love to include some of my friends in that group. But frankly, I just don't have enough time to run for more people than that. So yeah, there you go. I don't think you're being a tyrant, but I do think this Reddit post is right. It is important to set those boundaries. Even if sometimes it might be a little bit unpleasant, I think it's still important to set those boundaries. But yeah, there you go. There's a little bit of my horror story, and there's a little bit of advice for preventing some of your horror stories. Let's get into your horror stories properly, though, with a little bit of your voicemails. Let's listen to them. All right, dinner has been consumed, and now it is time to see what you guys have got for me today. So, yeah, without further ado, let's see.
Hey Crispy, love your content, and it's helped me out in terms of what to do and what not to do as a DM and as a player, but I have a problem. Recently, I just played through Xenoblade Chronicles, and I love pretty much everything about it. It's a game that I could recommend to anyone who hasn't played it or watched Chuck Conroy's Let's Play of it. My problem is that I want to include elements from the game without it coming off as me directly ripping off stuff from the game. I want to create a Xenoblade-esque solarpunk world where high tech exists while remaining environment friendly and stuff. My friends are going to be getting the game soon, and I feel like if I include a lot of stuff from it, they'll think I'm like ripping off stuff from the game, they'll think I'm probably unoriginal or something. And again, if you haven't played Xenoblade Chronicles 1, please do!
No. I'm kidding. I don't hate Xenoblade Chronicle, but definitely not the type of game that's my speed. I'm glad that you love it, though. That's awesome. I really love when people really become invested in something and find passion in something, even if it's not something that I'm that into. Honestly, guys, when it comes to game recommendations, I'm gonna be honest, I'm not exactly frivolous with the amount of games I have. Like, my friend took a look at my Steam library and laughed that it was shockingly small because I don't buy that many video games, especially video games that fall outside of the normal range of what I play. Like, I will only buy video games these days that I know I'm going to like because I only have so much time on my hands. But anyway, that's a little spiel. I'm sorry. I will not be trying out Xenoblade Chronicle anytime soon. But your problem that you brought up is something that a lot of DMs struggle with. A lot of DMs, GMs, whatever. Game Masters struggle with ripping off things, stealing ideas, basically. We all do it. We all steal ideas all the time. And I think it's okay. Not only is it okay, I think it's good. I think it really hypes me up when I see something in Destiny or Lord of the Rings, or Game of Thrones, or whatever. My campaign takes a lot from a lot. And my friends are okay with that because either A, they don't watch or play those movies or video games, or B, they know and they just don't care. Or C, not only do they not care, but they think it's cool because they love to see those references. There are times where something that will take you out of the experience. Momo O'Brien, who we've worked with on this channel before, she made a video about immersive D&D and said that songs from movies, television shows, video games that she knows takes her out of the experience. So if she hears a song from Lord of the Rings, she's taken out of the world that she's in because she associates that song with Middle-earth exclusively. I don't feel that by any means. I use music from Destiny, from Game of Thrones, from House of the Dragon, from primarily from Destiny, I'm going to be honest. God of War 2, though. I've been using a lot of God of War Ragnarok music from the game files because that stuff is great. But anyway, I use pretty much exclusively music from things I enjoy, and it never takes me out of the experience. So obviously, it depends on who you ask. Honestly, if your friends are about to play Xenoblade Chronicle, just tell them, like, hey, in my next campaign I want to run, I'm going to base it off of Xenoblade Chronicle, whatever game you are running. And if they say, oh, cool, then great. That's awesome. Like, if you take elements from Xenoblade Chronicle, I don't think your friends are going to think that you're some unoriginal, horrible writer, because frankly, like, there's not many DMs who are master writers. You know, we all take something from something. And while some of us may be more, are you kidding me with these spam calls, man? Come on. We're in the middle of the show. It's becoming a weekly occurrence. We had a few weeks where it didn't happen, but now it's happening all the time. Anyway, if you take from Xenoblade Chronicle, I really don't see your friends getting too miffed about it. I don't know your friends, obviously. But again, like, I take a lot from a lot of properties that my friends already know, and they just kind of gloss right over it, because at the end of the day, when you transpose, I don't know, when you take, let me think. When you take Eldritch Horror elements from Destiny and Dishonored and transpose them into my homebrew world of Eris, they become different. They become new to the players. This new take on it is separate, and the players see it largely as separate, because I make even just small tweaks to make it more original to me. And that results in a campaign that my friends really enjoy. I mean, it's not just my friends. I mean, Shadow over Kerkonos. Kerkonos is largely based off of Sir Konos from Dishonored. I mean, come on, it's even in the damn name. Like, the names are nearly identical, with literally the exception of a single letter. And people who noticed didn't care, and most people just straight up didn't notice at all. It's okay to take things from other things. Now, if you are really closely taking elements, obviously, like, I mean, I recommended it just at baseline. Tell your friends. Like, obviously, from what I've seen of Xenoblade, from Smash Brothers, from Smash Brothers primarily, from what I've seen, it is a very unique aesthetic for a world. So I think your friends will notice, especially if they just started playing it. However, again, just telling them, like, hey, here's what we're doing, here's where I'm taking these elements, I think that's good. Though, of course, I'm sure if you want to just play a Xenoblade game, I'm sure there are ways to do that. Like, Xenoblade is pretty popular. I imagine somebody's made a tabletop adaptation, but, you know, that aside, if you're taking elements from Xenoblade, I think just clarifying that to your players will make sure that they are aware and, you know, ensure that you know if they are good with that or not. So there you go. Hope you best of luck in your campaign.
Hey, Crispy. For sake of time, for roughly 2.5 weeks, we dealt with a woman named Shepard. She had this thing that where she'd say, I'm a 32-year-old combat vet with cancer. She'd try to throw that into as many conversations as possible. She would try to gaslight twice on occasion. At one point, she threatened self-deletion. And then when she got booted out of the game, she threatened it again. I called Shepard out on that, and then I blocked her. So, yeah.
I don't think I need to hear the whole thing. I have heard the whole thing, by the way, but I don't think we need to hear the whole thing to know Shepard, who is a disgrace to the glorious Commander Shepard, sucks. She's terrible. Awful. That's bad. That's really bad. Yeah, so that is the kind of person that you need to remove from your game, and luckily it seems that they did that. However, this is a great showcase of sometimes that's not where it ends. Sometimes you gotta take it a few steps further. I have dealt with this myself. I talked about this in the episode, I think it was episode 9 where I talked about it. My worst RPG horror story gets even worse. Yeah, I mean, I kicked a guy out of my D&D game, and years later, he came back, and it wasn't over. And it sucked. It was annoying as hell. I'm not going to lie. And I think Shepard is very similar in that sense, that she got kicked out of the game. And if anything, that made her more reactionary. Now, do not let that stop you from getting toxic people out of your life. Okay, the fear of their reprisal should not stop you from at least trying to avoid or remove actively toxic people from your social circles. Because honestly, if their behavior is that toxic that you need to remove them, you're going to suffer more harm by just letting it lay. All right? At the end of the day, your priority. Now, of course, I'm not trying to say, like, put yourself in danger for the sake of this. Don't do that. But do what you can to remove yourself from a person who is trying to threaten you in these ways. Shepard is the kind of person who threatens some very serious stuff, and you take that very seriously. But at the end of the day, you are not responsible for Shepard or their happiness. Shepard is responsible for their own life, and it's not on you to make sure that they're happy. If Shepard is threatening things, even threatening to harm themselves in some way, that I take very seriously as something that is extremely toxic. Like, I'm sorry, but if you threaten that to me, that's an instant sign of, I can't have you in my life, because that's not okay at all. It's an ultimatum that is an attempt, a blatant attempt, in my opinion, to control you in a way that I find just incredibly pathetic. So yeah, I have very little empathy for our Shepherd buddy here. Besides their name, they don't really have much going for them, I'm going to be honest. And, threatening, themselves and other people is just a sign of a person who isn't just kind of toxic, they are extremely toxic in many different ways. This doesn't just go for Dungeons & Dragons or any TTRPG, it goes for every aspect of your social life. People like this don't just get better overnight, and hoping that they will is not a good idea. Be proactive with getting people who act like this out of your social circles, because they are going to hurt you, and it's gonna suck. They're gonna keep on hurting you, and usually they're not just going to leave you alone. Sometimes you gotta be more active, whether it's blocking them or making it clear that you don't want them in your life, etc., etc. I had to do the latter, and yeah, it wasn't fun, but it had to be done, and I'm much happier now for it. So yeah, it sucks that you're in that situation. It sounds terrible, I'm gonna be honest. But here's hoping that you manage to figure out a way out of it and figure out a way to bolster your friendship with the people who actually do care about you. Kind of got away from the topic of Dungeons & Dragons there and TTRPGs. That's a bit more serious, but, well, yeah, there you are. All right, though. I think with the voicemails done, I think it's time for something a little bit more lighthearted, guys. I think it's time for Thing of the Week. So yeah, cue the thing. All right, guys. This week, my Thing of the Week are these amazing bamboo embroidery rings. I know, kind of random, but seriously, these have made my week. As you can see, there's some paint on them, because if you don't know this about me, one of my great hobbies, my favorite hobbies, is flow acrylic painting. I love painting with flow acrylic. Basically, you pour acrylic on canvas and you see how it turns out. It's a little bit more complicated than that, but that's the basic gist. And with these fancy rings, you can do this really cool planet pour technique. Ooh, look at Mars there. Oh, okay, I'm trying to fit it in the frame. It's kind of big. But, oh, yeah, look at that. There's Mars. I did this. Oh, God. It's really big. I'm, like, trying not to hide myself behind the painting. But, yeah, I made Mars in celebration of the end of the Witch Queen. The planet is painted with primarily metallic paints so that in dimmer light, it shines and sheens against the spacey background. I think I already said this, but yes, I painted this to celebrate the end of Destiny 2, The Witch Queen, a couple weeks ago, and these embroidery rings were a big reason that worked so well. Unfortunately, I did not film the painting of this particular painting, but essentially, you pour the planet part first, then you spread the paint out, and then you put the ring over the planet to protect the circular planet's shape, like so. I'm trying to recreate it. Oh God. Like that. Put the ring over the planet, and then you paint the background. Now, obviously, there is going to be some elements of the background paint that flow onto the planet and kind of ruin the perfectly round aesthetic of your wonderful little happy metallic planet. But that's what touch-ups are for. I did have to touch this up a fair bit after I was done. But yeah, it was a lot of fun to paint, and I really love this technique. I love flow acrylic painting. It's a really simple way to make some cool art. And it's not really that expensive to do. Like these rings, I got so many of these in many different sizes for only like $20. And then mixing your own paint is honestly not that hard. There's so many tutorials on YouTube. It is a bit of a learning curve, But I do think flow acrylic painting is a really fun form of painting, as long as you look up some YouTube tutorials, follow the instructions, and I think you can make some really, really cool stuff. I actually use a lot of these paintings. I also have some posters in the back there for the same purpose, to hide sound panels, so that my room still has their, fancy sound panels and sound dampening stuff to prevent echo in here. But also, it looks pretty, because having a bunch of, black rectangles in my office is just, not ideal. I like having, paintings and posters instead, but I still want, practicality, so I use them to conceal the sound dampening stuff in my room. But yeah, there you go. That's my thing of the week, is these wonderful bamboo embroidery rings that I use for painting. You can also use them for embroidery, obviously, but I do not embroider, unfortunately. So yes, their purpose is to protect planets and to also do other things. You can also use this to just guide paint in general, to try and make sure it adheres to a certain pattern. But yeah, a lot of fun. Really enjoy flow acrylic painting, and I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Tavern Adjacent. This was a lot of fun. Didn't expect to be talking about Destiny this episode, but I mean, come on. With my Destiny obsession, it was only a matter of time. If you guys enjoyed, then please do leave a like. If you want to see more of my content, then you can check out our RPG horror story series, where we talk about the best and worst of Dungeons and Dragons. It's linked in the cards. And while you're there, subscribe to Crispy's Tavern to get more of our content as it comes out. And finally, if you want to leave your own thoughts, go down in the comments down below. If you want to submit a story to the podcast, there's a link where you can record your own story, 1 minute, 30 seconds, just to tell us what's going on and what you need help with. A little bit of $5 therapy for you guys at Tavern Adjacent. If you guys can't think of a comment, by the way, leave the comment Lightfall to let me know you made it to the end of the show. In essence, like, comment, subscribe. I will see you all next time. Farewell.